Good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, honorable guests. I'm very honored and pleased to be standing before you, in front of you today, as representing the Confederation of Tourism and its chairman, Chairman Kabaj, and Vice President Mrani, and the members of the board, some of whom are present with us today. The Morocco National Confederation of Tourism gathers within itself the entire profession, including hotel owners, hotel developers, travel agents, car rental, name it. Basically, we are the private sector, and our job is also to co-conduct the strategy Amin was speaking about earlier, 2020, but also to challenge it. We're not only here to say that we are with the strategy, but we're also there to challenge the strategy. But our ambition is common, whether it be the public sector. What we all want is move ahead with our ambition, and as Amin said, to figure among the top 20 destinations, of the world destinations within 2020. So the World Travel Organization is extremely, I would say, optimistic about the future. So for the 2020-2030 is definitely an opportunity for Africa. The world tourism growth will keep a sustainable and positive trend, which is a good news, with an average annual growth of 4.2%. Tourism growth will surpass that of the world economy and other industries. 74.5 million new jobs going to be created within the period. 10.3% contribution to world economy in 2024. Right now it's 9.5%, and growth will be stimulated by demand from emerging markets, both in tourist arrivals and revenues. Regarding Africa, the African continent, together with Asia Pacific, will benefit of the highest growth ratios, whereas those of Europe and the Americas will diminish, as compared to now. If we focus a little bit more on African tourism, you will all agree with me that the wealth in terms of resources and tourism resources is absolutely incomparable worldwide. Africa has been one of the fastest growing tourism continents in the last decade. The continent continued to enjoy sustained growth, attracting 6% more international tourist arrival in 2013, hitting a new record of 56 million, yet only the world's share of international arrivals, which is, you would agree with me, far below what the continent deserves. The growth in international tourist arrivals for Africa is expected to remain as such for the coming years. Yet, such performances are to be considered far below, as I said, the continent's potential. Maybe this is an opportunity to, I know that the audience is made of architects, designers, hopefully hotel owners, hopefully investors, but I guess that we all have to ask ourselves the question, why are these performances so low as compared to the potential? Well, one of the reasons could be the fact that tourism is not an isolated sector within an economy. It is transverse, as it was said before, and its development requires a well-balanced, developed, and self-confident society. The most powerful destinations, very powerful economies. If we have a look at, if we try to draw some kind of SWOT of the situation of tourism in Africa, the strengths are It's a unique world sanctuary of preserved nature, flora, and fauna. That goes without saying. A unique universal cultural heritage for the entire world to tell, and I'm sure you all agree with me on that. Weaknesses, there are quite a few. Visa restrictions, I mean, it might sound a detail, it's not. It's really a problem. To go to Africa, almost everyone in the world needs a visa. And insufficient airline access. And the thing is that there used to be an Air Afrique, which at maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, which is not anymore there, and we're moving backward instead of moving forward regarding airline access to the multiplicity of actors, decision makers, when it comes to operate or invest. And I guess some of you guys who are doing business with African countries may have experienced that. Lack of existing quality hospitality assets. I'm talking here about standards, I'm talking about access, locations. Lack of standard in visitor accommodations. The internet, for example, it's very difficult to find a hotel where the internet is perfectly working. Sometimes you cannot even make a reservation by email to a hotel. This happens, and this definitely is something that has to change in Africa. Lack of adequacy of a variety of infrastructure components, roads, telecommunications, internet, health infrastructures, because tourism needs all these things in order to blossom. Lacking interest from local populations sometimes because they don't feel concerned with tourism, not yet concerned. Lack also in human resources and employees. They have a lack in skilled, trained hotel management and mid-management resources, safety, security, insufficient promotion and governance. At least this is the way African destinations are perceived. Opportunities, there are a lot of opportunities. Tourism can be a fantastic opportunity to contribute to African global economic wealth. An opportunity for African people well-being and employment. An opportunity to help preserve nature and natural resources. An alternative to the exploitation of natural resources, all mine, Western and Central Africa. Wonderful opportunity for ecological tourism. Threats, I put terrorism on top of the list because it's a threat. When we hear about all that's happening geopolitically in the region, it is a threat, and we have to, African destinations have to have that in mind. Government lack of interest in political, government lack of interest will and will to develop tourism. Interest for tourism, I've noticed this, that interest for tourism in some African oil producing countries fluctuates with the price of the barrel. You know, when the price goes up, we forget about tourism. When it goes down, we remember tourism. If we look at the top 10 African destinations, we're proud to say that Morocco is number one in terms of number of tourists. As it was recalled by Amin earlier on, we achieved 10 million international tourist arrivals in 2013, and we followed closely by South Africa and Tunisia. I didn't put Egypt there because we never know if Egypt is to be considered African or Middle Eastern country, but just for your information, in 2013, Egypt achieved 9 million, so in this case, it should be number 3 there. Tunisia, 6.2, and then you have the rest of the list. And regarding Western and Central Africa, that's where the performances are, the poorest performances are there. And below 500,000 tourists. And this is interesting to see why the situation is such. And if you look at it, you will see that those who perform the are the oil-producing countries. Isn't it interesting? You see there, Morocco, we have no oil, we are number 1. Algeria has oil, they are number, what? They are number 4. So with the exception of South Africa and Egypt, tourism seems to blossom mostly in non-oil producing African countries. Why is that? If oil revenues are fairly employed, maybe a better life quality for the people, maybe tourism revenues would act as a fantastic belt transmission of such revenues. This is something I'm convinced of personally, maybe you share it with me or not, but it is something that some thought. The example of Gabon, for example, which is an oil-producing country and wood-producing country and mine-producing country, number of tourists does not exceed 200,000 for 1.5 million people and a fantastic nature, preserved nature. If the oil mine wood revenues were employed and injected into the economy and tourism to be developed, then tourism would be that transmission belt of richness within the country. This is just there as an example. Now, if we look at the world map, the world tourism in 2013, if we look at the shares and the revenues of tourism, the worldwide revenues of tourism, 159 billion euros. This is the global world tourism GDP, if you wish. You see that Europe gets the fairest share of it with 42%. Asia Pacific gets 31% of that revenue. The Americas, including North and South America, 20%. Middle East, 4%, and the entire continent, Africa, 3%. You agree with me that it's not fair, and it shouldn't. So this is a bad news and a good news. A bad news because it's really low. A good news because if we look at the glass half full instead of half empty, then the margin of growth is huge, as you can tell. And guess what? The 3% share of global tourism revenue that Africa gets corresponds exactly to the GDP, compared to the world GDP. African GDP, global GDP is 3% of global worldwide GDP. So you see there is a correlation there between the level of development of a country and the revenues that country can get out, or region or continent can get of tourism. There is a correlation between quality of life, between democracy, if you wish, and the blossoming of tourism. Of course, provided that the country has assets, has a culture, has a story to tell. I would like to say a word about religion and tourism in the continent. Morocco is destination number 27 worldwide in 2013, and as I said earlier, our ambition is to be among the top 20. But within those top 20, there are at least three Muslim countries. I won't mention Saudi Arabia because I have a captive religious tourism, but I would mention Turkey, which is number 6 worldwide, number 6 destination worldwide. I always call Turkey our best competitor. Because it's a nice example. Malaysia is number 10 and Morocco 27. For me, this means that religion are absolutely not a problem for the blossoming of tourism. If we take the cities, if we visited cities in the world, Paris is number 1. Back to 2010, things may have evolved now. Paris is 15 million visitors, London 14.6, New York 9.7, Antalya in Turkey is 9.2 million visitors. Singapore 9.2, Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia 8.9, Hong Kong 8.4, Dubai 8.3, there's another success story. Bangkok and Thailand, 7.2, and Istanbul. So we already have there 2 cities in the same country, which is Turkey. So for me, religion and stigma are certainly not an obstacle to future tourism growth in Africa, provided that the destination marketing is smart, the product is differentiated and attractive, and this is very important. I guess you guys are going to talk about this when you're going to come to design, to concepts, etc., to DNA, you know, product DNA. However, this is why I mentioned terrorism earlier. However, the persistence of growing violence in regions like Mali, Chad, Benin, Cameroon, Nigeria are the most serious threats to the future of tourism in the continent. So tourists are quite happy to come to Muslim countries, but they won't be happy and they won't consider coming to a region where terrorism is a threat. So Africa is promising, but only a proper and equitable education system, plus fair, democratic, and smart governance for the well-being of African population will allow the continent to emerge on the world tourism map as the ultimate tourism wonder of the world. I should have added a smiley there. It doesn't mean that we don't want to find it. Doesn't mean we don't want it. We do, and we will. However, it's not that bad that we haven't found it yet, because we saw that these countries that found it a long time ago have been relying on it, on our revenue. See, our neighbors in Algeria, and it's a little bit their case, they have a fantastic tourism richness and product, but they have not yet started. So these countries like Morocco and South Africa didn't have a choice, and they have to diversify their economy, and therefore, so I won't be long, Sandra, I'm sorry if I'm taking a little bit. Morocco is #1 destination in Africa, as I said, followed by Egypt, South Africa. Our ambition, like my colleague from Smith said earlier this morning, our ambition as a Moroccan hospitality professional is, however, to reach the world top 20 destination ranking because of our unique culture, and I wish some of you who are coming for the first time to Morocco have had the time to visit the country, because Mazagan is nice, but we have also other regions that are totally different in terms of nature, resources, culture. So we have a unique cultural history and a beautiful opportunity for storytelling and visiting our nature. And because, thanks God, stability. Our ambition is also, for many sectors, but for tourism as well, to help the African continent to emerge within the world tourism map. So our confederation, I'm going to say a few words now about our confederation, if you allow me to do so. Our confederation believes that Morocco's future tourism target objectives should evolve more towards quality criteria, and what I mean by quality criteria, rather than numbers of tourist arrival. We've been in this vision process for now. Both the public sector and the private sector, we're still learning, and we want to focus a little more now in the future on quality criteria and revenue criteria. Will this work with our authorities in order to focus more on concept, themed supply for more revenue and job creation? We will continue pushing for an adequate and feasible seaside tourism supply, but we'll also push for the upgrading of our cultural and historical product supply, for the development of a more substantial business tourism supply, for the upgrading of our hospitality industry, human resources and qualifications, and for a more performing GDP. Our global objective is to move on and help improve a strategy which will consolidate our actual success and guarantee the best possible IRR, internal return on investment, for our foreign and national hospitality investors. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, it is the investor who makes the decision to go or not to go. So concepts, difference for key. Storytelling and quality are the fundamental keys to the success of Morocco tourism, but it is also the key to the success of tourism in the African continent as a whole. Regarding Morocco, the difference should come from landscapes, from our unique immaterial heritage, from our unique history and culture, our traditions and opening to the world, our emerging economy and infrastructure, our sports infrastructure, our cuisine and sense of hospitality, our art, our Mediterranean and Atlantic venues. So you are welcome to visit Morocco, and you are welcome to invest in Morocco.